Now, let's look at Module 6, which focuses on domestic violence, child abuse, and family safety. So, and in this module, the focus is on recognizing, responding, and protecting vulnerable family members. So, this module addresses the darkest realities marriage counselors face. Unlike other marital problems, violence involves power, control, fear, and a violation of basic human rights. So the goal shifts from preserving a marriage to preserving lives. Okay? So the role of the marriage counselor is no longer about preserving the marriage, but preserving lives. Now let's talk about domestic violence. Domestic violence includes hitting. It can be physical, it can be psychological, it can be sexual, it can be economic, it can be coercive control. So all these are different kind of physical abuses that come together to form domestic violence. Now let's talk about physical violence. This involves hitting, choking, pushing, shoving, or using weapons, or even denying medical care. These are physical abuse. But aside physical abuse, there's what we call psychological or emotional abuse, which involves constant criticism, gaslighting, or making the victim doubt reality, isolation, humiliation, and even threats. Then there's what we call sexual abuse, which involves marital rape, coerced acts, forced pornography, then or reproductive coercion. Then aside that, we have what we call economic abuse, which involves controlling all finances, preventing work, stealing income, incurring debt in victim's name, and so forth. Then there's what we call coercive control. This is the overarching pattern that organizes all other types, a criminal offense in some jurisdictions. So domestic violence is not both sides. It is a pattern where one partner systematically controls the other through fear. So that's domestic violence. Let's look at the cycle of violence. Okay, we have about 3 phases. We have the first stage is tension building. Then second stage is acute explosion. Then 3 is honeymoon or reconciliation stage. Okay, so these phases forms a cycle. Okay, so the first stage, which is tension building, focus on abuser becomes irritable, victim walks on eggshells, and this can last for days, weeks, or months. Then it moves to the acute explosion, where the violence erupts, either physical, sexual, or severe psychological abuse, and is targeted, not random. Then after that is the reconciliation or honeymoon stage. This is when the abusers apologize, promises to change, buys gifts, but the victim wants to believe. So this cycle continues to repeat. Okay, why do victims stay? They are not staying with the abuser who hurts them. They are staying with the loving partner who returns after the violence. So the tragedy is they are the same person. So the honeymoon phase is why victims return again and again and break the cycle by naming it. Now, why doesn't she just leave? This is the wrong question to ask, okay? Now, fear of escalated violence. The most dangerous time is when leaving or after leaving. Murder suicide risk peaks. Then, economic dependency. No independent income. That is why you see she cannot just leave. Or access to money. Leaving can mean homelessness. That's why some will decide to say, okay, let me stay. Then there are also other housing and practical barriers, like questions like, where will they go? Shelters are scarce in Nigeria. All these contribute to why she will not want to leave. Then there's all cultural and religious pressure. You hear every marriage has problems. Be patient. What will people say when you leave your marriage? All these are pressure from culture and even religion. Now, what of children and custody concerns are also reason why some stay in the marriage. Fear of losing children, or that abuser will harm them. You see? So all these are other reasons. Then there is shame and self-blame, internalizing the abuser's messages. If I were a better wife, you can imagine, these are reasons why people say. Then other persons stay in the marriage because they believe the honeymoon phase is a real person and not the other one. So they believe in hope and love. Okay. Now, they also lack, others stay because they lack legal protection. Police may treat it as a family matter. Okay. Now, this is a critical distinction. No couples counseling in domestic violence. Okay. Why couple counseling is dangerous in domestic violence cases can include the victim may be punished at home for what they disclose. The abuser may use counseling information to further manipulate. The abuser may appear reasonable in session while the victim appears emotional. Now, communication skills training gives the abuser more sophisticated tools for abuse, and conflict resolution assumes both parties share responsibility. This is where the abuser is solely responsible for violence. Now, this is the appropriate response. Safety planning for the victim only first, then legal advocacy and referral, then abuser intervention programs, then individual trauma counseling for victim. So if you, as a marriage counselor, if you do couples counseling in the domestic violence case, you become complicit in the abuse. So do not do it. Now let's talk about violence against husbands and wives. Both genders can be victims, but the dynamics differ. Now there can be violence against wives. This is most common. 1 in 3 Nigerian married women has experienced physical violence. Cultural normalization, economic dependency, legal barriers. Now, violence against husbands is under-recognized. Male victims also experience minor physical aggression and psychological abuse. Unique barriers such as cultural shame, ridicule, disbelief, lack of shelter, fear of being seen as the abuser, all this keeps him in the marriage. Now, there are key distinctions. There's what we call intimate terrorism versus situational couple violence. In intimate terrorism, there is systemic control through violence, no couples counseling, safety focuses only. There's also what we call situational couple violence. In this case, conflicts that occasionally become physical. Both partners may engage, may respond to couples counseling as the case may be. Now, what are the indicators of intimate terrorism? Consistent fear, multiple abuse types. Violence does not stop even when victim complies. So now, how do you handle it? Do not dismiss male victims. Then do not assume all violence is mutual. So assess carefully. Now, let's talk about the critical distinction. No couples counseling in domestic violence. Okay. Why couples counseling is dangerous in domestic violence cases? The victim may be punished at home for what they disclose. The abuser may use counseling information to further manipulate. And then at the end of it, the abuser may appear reasonable in session while the victim appears emotional. So please, like we've said, if you do couples counseling in a domestic violence case, you become a complicit in the abuse. So you have to be careful. Okay? So let's talk about child abuse in family settings. Child abuse can be of 4 types: physical, emotional, and sexual, and neglect. Physical child abuse can include beating, burning, shaking, excessive discipline, or leaving marks on the body. So, while psychological or emotional child abuse can involve constant criticism, rejection, and terrorizing. Okay? So, and even witnessing domestic violence is also a form of emotional child abuse when the child witnessed domestic violence. Another form of child abuse can be sexual, which includes fondling, penetration, pornography, and exploitation. Then other aspects can include neglect, which talks about inadequate food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and supervision. So, but there are a lot of challenges when we are discussing child abuse in Nigeria. For instance, there's a cultural acceptance of corporal punishment. Then there is an acceptance of child marriage, one of the highest rates globally. And there is always witchcraft accusations against children. And the existence of baby factories in some parts, that is illegal facilities that are exploiting children in Nigeria, also pose a challenge. So a child who witnesses their father, for instance, choke their mother is a victim of emotional abuse, even if never touched. Okay? Now, legal frameworks and mandatory reporting. Now, there are Nigerian laws that regulate all this. Like we have the Child Right Act of 2003 that gives, that provides a comprehensive child protection. Okay, then there is Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act VAP 2015, which is gender neutral criminalization of domestic violence. Then Trafficking in Persons Act, which addresses child exploitation. So you can report any of the cases. You can also report to State Ministry of Women Affairs, NAPTID, or police family support units. So know your state laws. Where you are not reporting can make you legally liable and complicit in ongoing abuse. Now, let's talk about establishing a referral network and counselor self-care. Now, referral network essentials include domestic violence shelters, legal and organizations, police family support unit, that as I mentioned, hospitals and forensic examination capacity, NAPTID, the State Ministry of Women Affairs. You can refer, all right? And signs of counselor self-care is very important. Like signs are intrusive images, hypervigilance, cynism, emotional numbing. Then, what are the protective strategies? It includes regular supervision, caseload limits, clear boundaries, personal therapy, peer support, and physical health. You cannot pour from an empty cup, so you have to work on yourself. Working with trauma without self-care leads to burnout and harm to future clients. So you have to know when to establish a referral and also when you need to care for yourself as a marriage counselor. So we have seen that the work marriage counseling is a heavy work, but it is a very essential work. You have to be competent, you have to be courageous, and prioritize safety above all else. Thank you.